Live from the Emerald City, it's a Dish with Deeva Show. Here she is, the one and only K-Cee Diva.
What up, peeps? It's your girl K-Cee Diva here. Welcome to another edition of Dish with Diva with yours truly. As always, I'm so glad you could join me today. I've got a fun show for you. And a really cool guest. So I'm excited to have him on and share some of his knowledge about entertainment and Hollywood, Black Hollywood in particular. Real quick, let me do the rundown. Hit me up on IG. I'm at K-Cee. I'm at MZ K-Cee Diva. K-Cee Deeva Shows on my YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends, your family, and so on. And then if you're on Facebook, K-Cee Diva and Dish with Diva page as well. And if you want to be a guest on the show, hit me up and we can chat about it. All right. Oh, and I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at K-Cee Diva Shows. So can't miss me. All right, let's dive on in. I want to welcome my guest today. I actually met him through some of my fam in Kansas City, Missouri. You know, they hit me up. They said, hey, you got to talk to this guy. Like, I think he'd be a really cool guest for your show. I think he'd be a lot of fun. Now, if you know me, you know, I'm pretty skeptical. I'm like, oh, no, I'll check him out, you know. But I ended up having a great conversation with him. We had a lot of fun, and so bringing that to you tonight. His name is LACEY, and I have dubbed him an entertainment historian because he's got a lot of knowledge about Black Hollywood in particular that we're going to talk about. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, how you doing, Miss K-Cee Diva? How are you today?
Well, I'm doing well. Here. What's the weather like out in those parts?
It was not bad today. It had been bipolar, I'll say earlier, and that it was 70 degrees one day and 30 degrees the next morning. So it was very, very challenging dealing with that. You didn't know whether to wear a coat or not.
Right.
You know,
this weather's crazy. Yeah, just crazy all over the country. It's just, you know, tornadoes where they never had tornadoes before. And our weather, right before we logged on, they're talking about snow this weekend. I'm like, wait a minute. Wow. I just packed up the winter sweaters. Are you telling me I got to drag them back out?
That's insane. That's insane.
Anyway. Yeah, you know. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting summer. How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
How about that?
I think we can handle it after 2020, though.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Well, let's talk some Black Hollywood here. So, you know, I got to do it. I know this topic will be ongoing for a while, and we kind of touched on it the other day. Shout out to my cousin Andre, his beautiful wife Lori. Lori was on my show talking about her business, Drake Anthony Designs. Go check out the jewelry. And all my family in Kansas City, Missouri. Andre was the one that told me that you have all this knowledge, and so and interesting views on things. So I have to ask about the infamous Oscar slap. We'll just start there and get that out of the way because I know people are curious. So we're just going to talk about it and get out of the way. But, you know, it more and more unfolds, right? It's like every day there's a different angle, a different story. The latest is that, you know, they banned Will Smith for 10 years from the Oscars. So, I mean, Will Smith is going to be in his mid-50s if I'm thinking correctly. 53. So 10 years, he'll be 63. I mean, do you think that was fair? And do you think if that had been, let's say, a white celebrity, that he would have got the same harsh punishment?
You know, I do not, because there have been white celebrities that have done inappropriate things at the Oscars, and they were not banned. Mm-hmm. We don't need to run through the things that they've done, but there have been inappropriate groping of women at the Oscars. There have been physical attacks of women at the Oscars by white celebrities, and this has been going on since I can think of episodes of in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, and none of them were banned. Right. I think you either not ban Will or you sanction them. I mean, you can't go ex post facto, but since you didn't sanction them, you can't really ban Will. Now, what Will did was wrong. Of course, I think what Will did was wrong. Uh, as we like to say nowadays, it was toxic masculinity because unless someone gets physical with you, you don't get physical with someone else.
Right.
It was a tasteless joke. It was tasteless, assuming that Chris Rock knew of her medical condition.
Well, yeah, that's my whole thing. It hasn't really been clear that whether he knew or he didn't. Right. There's been speculation that he did not.
Right.
But that also brings me to, okay, he's a comedian, right? I mean, comedians, as we know and we've seen, they kind of get a pass. They hit everything. They talk about disabled folks. They talk about Black, white, Asian,
gender,
Native
race,
American. No one is off limits.
No.
And so in this case, with her alopecia and all this, we really don't know because he hasn't said anything himself yet, whether or not he knew. And then it's still kind of like, okay, let's say he knew and he made the joke. Some people feel like
let's compare and contrast. And granted, it was a different decade, but if you've ever seen Eddie Murphy's stand-up comedy Raw and Eddie's stand-up comedy Delirious, you want to compare about how he talked about homosexuals and that,
right?
I mean, he, and we laughed.
Yeah.
I can't. George Carlton. George. He's deceased now.
George Carl. I know you're talking about
George Carlin.
Carlton or Carlson. It's one of those
like that. Yeah. I mean, he talked about, like you said, disabled people.
Yeah.
He talked about homosexuals. He talked about women. He talked about pretty much everyone. And so with I understand it's a different decade, but with cancel culture and the things that we have now. But I mean, comedians are gonna comedian, so to speak.
Right.
And for someone to be that sensitive, to make it physical when it wasn't, that's concerning to me. I think that what Will did was wrong. But again, when you had other celebrities who groped women on stage uninvited, they were not banned, and this was just a few years ago.
Hey, when you say that, one that there's a few incidents, but one that sticks out in my mind was Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I forget the actor name who kissed her or whatever. I forget who it was, but I remember it was talked about kind of briefly and then kind of whisked over. And we're sitting home watching it. I was actually watching that year, and I'm like, and you could tell how uncomfortable she was.
She was very uncomfortable.
It's the entitlement, right? Like you think it's okay just to grab this woman and plant one on her.
It's essentially ludicrous because women have been saying that for years. Women have been saying, "I don't owe you my body" for years.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like, you haven't found that out yet.
Right.
You're not entitled to that woman's personal space.
Yeah.
And absolutely nothing was done to him. Absolutely, he was not sanctioned. He was not canceled. They talked about how inappropriate it was, but he faced Will's going to suffer economically for this. He's going to suffer economically for this. And to me, unless you destroy someone's pocket, no one really cares, or that person doesn't really care. And that's my issue with cancel culture. Unless you can do all the talking and the protesting and marketing and all that stuff, but unless you interfere with someone's ability to generate income, nothing's going to change. And they interfere with Will's ability to generate income and didn't interfere with anyone else's. And what's the obvious difference here? Will Smith is Black and those other actors are not.
Right.
That has to be said.
Yeah, it does. There's definitely difference. And then, as we talked about, the other day too, there are those that look and say, oh, yeah, see, I knew it, that we finally, we worked so hard to get to the point where we're invited to the Oscars, we're winning Oscars and such. And even our own culture, there's people that have said, yeah, man, I think you're setting us back. We'll set us back by doing this because now they're not going to be so quick to invite us to host and to do all of these things. I mean, we had Will Packer, who was the first, Black producer of the Oscars, and the full Black crew. All that kind of stuff was glazed over, right? And so, the question is, okay, So now what? You know what I mean? Like the next big thing. Are we going to be, still invited? Are we still going to be in those spaces?
Let me address that. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, people are going to tune into the Oscars next year to see
Oh,
what happens.
For sure.
So, as we like to say, no one can do it like Black people can do it. And that was great publicity, great publicity that was generated. People are going to tune in. So if anything, it's funny when other races do things, it's when Kid Rock and Tommy Lee got into a fight, it was, completely, it was completely, or when Kyle Busch, it was maybe Kyle Orton and someone got into a fight at NASCAR. They weren't thugs and they weren't.
I saw that.
They weren't thugs and criminals. But when Ron Artest and Ben Wallace got into it at a basketball game, oh, look at those thugs, look at those, hoodlums and so forth.
Yeah.
So, when other races do things, it's actually peculiar, precarious, and baffling. That when other races do things, it somehow shows leadership or somehow is okay. But when Black people do the exact same thing, seems to be a problem with it. And I find that very curious.
Yes, I like that. That's a good word. I'm curious. Let's see. Edward Robinson. Edward says, how do you feel about Woody Allen and Charlie Sheen, significant crimes that County did nothing? Woody Allen, yeah, for sure. Hockey players fight every night. yeah.
That's what
I never understood. Why is it okay? Like they fight fight all the time.
They don't have teeth.
And nobody really says anything. But like a basketball fight or something, or football,
It's weird. They clear the dugouts in baseball. The dugouts, who didn't remember Pete Rose and I'm showing my age here, but Pete Rose kicking dirt on the umpire and
I remember that. Yeah.
Dugout clearing brawls in baseball. And like I said, they don't have teeth in hockey. It was guaranteed a fight, a scuffle. But again, when Black people do it, it's a problem. What really made me notice this when I was a younger man, I remember the blowback with Serena Williams. And how a lot of it is America first, America first. When she played Maria Sharapova, they cheered for the Russian.
Yep,
that's amazing to me,
and we know why. We
know why. But what happened to America first?
Yeah,
they cheered for the Russian.
Yeah,
and last time I checked, Russia's not our friend. But you cheer for the Russian.
Nobody's right now.
Exactly.
Serena Williams so that's real. And it's sad. It's sad, right? And I think to the point of those who are saying, like, come on, Will, like, you can't do these kinds of things because this gives people ammo to say, but see how they act,
It does, but let's face it. The people that have that ammo, they have their guns pointed at us anyway.
Ooh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But I do want to acknowledge, though, kudos to Chris Rock because he handled it
very well.
I mean, we've talked about the other comedians in the comments and things that we've seen. People saying how they would have handled it and so on. I'm actually having a comedian on next week. And who's got some interesting views on how she might have handled it. It's I think it's going to be ongoing for a minute. I think the repercussions of what he did for himself personally and just all these events that happen. He's
going to suffer. I mean, he resigned from the Academy. That's going to be a problem.
That's huge. Yeah,
that's huge. He's he's not banned from being nominated for an Oscar.
No.
But and also at the end of the day, I like to say this. People want to be entertained. And so if Will Smith puts out a movie, there are going to be more people that will go see that movie than not. Because at the end of the day, people want to be entertained.
Right.
And they'll say, oh man, You know, he's a thug, but someone will go see that thug's movie because they love to
He's
be
a great
involved.
actor. I mean, Will's a
He's a good actor.
phenomenal actor. You know,
what proves this is I bet you people would go see Antonio Brown play football. If you, I bet you.
You went there.
I went there. I went there. You know,
I love it.
I bet you people will go see Antonio Brown play football. I guarantee you he will pack the stands.
Yeah.
You know, I guarantee you, you know, all of the other issues. I don't know if you remember Kareem Hunt, the Kansas City Chiefs running back, domestic violence conviction. People will go see him.
People still go see them. I mean, there's been a lot of football players with domestic violence convictions and, you know, horrific things.
Every week.
People still go see them. They still have fans. They're still waiting there trying to get their jersey signed and whatever. Right. So I want to move into like you touched on, you know, Will Smith. Like, you know, he'll still be, you know, probably. I think he'll still be working. It might hit him in the pocketbook for a minute. There may be some people that kind of pull back or afraid, but I think he's a big enough star where you know, and not to mention, you know, they've produced some of their own movies. Yeah. I mean, him and Jada have produced
he owned Westbrook Studios, if I'm not mistaken.
So you know, if he really wants to do movies and stuff, he could create his own. Right. And then I also think about, you know, it brings me to people like you know, the Tyler Perrys, you know, because historically, you know, we had to wait on, you know, people to give us a chance at roles and jobs, production jobs, whatever. You know, Tyler Perry, I mean, he's got this $1 billion studio and, you know, has the means to, I mean, I every time I see a Tyler Perry movie or TV show or series, I mean, he's got so much of everything. There's new faces that I've never seen or heard of before. And I think it's just a beautiful thing that we are now in a position to create our own movies, employ our own people. You know, we don't have to sit around and wait for someone to give us a role anymore.
And that is what I love. I'm not leaving it to you to hire me. I'm not leaving it to you to give me a job. I will create. I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to create my own, and my own will support me. I think what needs to happen, and I realize that we're 13.4% of the population, and there are 330 million Black people in America, and we're just over 40 million. But I still think among Black people, when it comes to creating our own opportunities, we need to value our own achievements as much as, say, the Oscars. You need to value a Soul Train Award as much as the Oscars.
Good point. Yeah.
There is you know, growing up, I love Black culture. I love Black culture. But there, you know, and I tend to think of things in terms of rap lyrics. And there's a rap lyric that is extremely disturbing to me by Nelly, in which he says, remember, I'm going down.
I love me some Nelly. Now, which one?
Remember when he said, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, let me in now.
Let me in, man. Yeah.
You're successful and you're still asking. Why is that?
Now, see, I didn't. I know exactly what song. I didn't hear it like that. I think you bring up a really good point. How I heard it was, you know what? I'm at your level now, so you have to let me at the table. You know,
I'll make my own table. That's what I mean. I'll make my own table and I'll value it. You don't have to accept me. And I get it because, you know, we're only 13% of the population. So I get that if you don't, as Quincy Jones would say, it becomes a sort of a chitlin circuit if you only appeal to Black people.
Right.
And absolutely. I do understand that you know, it's a lot better to appeal to 330 million people than it is to 40 million. But again, let Bill Gates, Donald Trump, let me in now. There's just something about that really
it bothered you, huh?
Yeah, are we still
Country Grammar? Yes, Anthony. Hey, Anthony. Country Grammar. Thank you. It was at the tip of my tongue. I was like, I know that song. I know the lyrics, but I can't think of the name of the song. Anthony and I do 90 Day Fiance recap on Monday nights because, you know, Is there's so much to talk about that. That's a whole other.
I've heard about that show.
Yeah, that show. If you want some like seriously mindless, brainless, you don't have to use a brain cell TV.
Okay.
That show is it, but it's so much fun to kind of riff on. So, when you think about when I think about Black Hollywood in particular, right? This is a question I have for you. What are your thoughts on? So, we've seen, speaking of rap artists like Nelly, we've seen like the T.I.s, the T's, Ice Cube. They've gone from music and rap into Hollywood, right? Into the movies and into acting. And I know that there are actors out there who are upset at the fact, like, wait, okay, you need someone to play this role. I can play that. I'm classically trained, from this school or whatever, but you're hiring someone who, in Ice-T's case, actually lived that life. So he's a natural at, those kind of those parts, some of the parts he's played. Of course, now he's on SVU, and I love him on there. But Law and Order. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that? Like, these rappers, 50 Cent, I mean, he's got a whole with Power, he's got Power Universe now. It's just like he's making gazillion dollars doing that. Again, creating our own opportunities. But I'm just curious what you think of that whole transition. Like, do they stay in their lane, or, do you think they're doing too much trying to straddle and do all this stuff?
I'll make this analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You have a battleship. It's armor plated. 17 inches of steel is the thickest part of the ship. Thanks to Andre for that tidbit of information. But you have this battleship, and it can be sunk by a cruise missile the size of smaller than a car. Whereas if you have warfare is changing, and so now you don't need the huge armor plated ships. You need a small mobile fleet. And so when you say, well, I'm a classically trained actor, that's not what the people want.
Right.
The people want what they grew up with. It's about what generates income and what generates marketability. Hollywood is a I don't want to use 2021 and 2020 statistics. Hollywood was a $36.4 billion business in 2019 before COVID.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Some estimates put it at 48 billion. So between 36 and 48. Okay. When you add home revenues, you're looking at just short of 150. So you have to look at who's going to generate the lion's share of that income. And people may not know a classically trained actor, but they sure did listen to Ashanti. They sure do listen to Beyonce. They sure do listen to Ludacris.
Ludacris! I forgot he's done some acting too.
Right. So when you think about the Fast and the Furious, especially the Fate of the Furious, which is a $1 billion franchise, who was directed by one of them was directed by F. Gary Gray, Black director. And so regardless of the talent, it's not so much. I won't say that it's not so much about talent, but it's about who you know and who you grew up with and who you will go pay to see.
Right. Unfortunately, who you're familiar with.
Right. And Luda from his album. You may not know Derek Luke, who's a classically trained actor.
He's a great actor.
Very good actor, but you may not know him because unfortunately we're introduced to music before we are to movies, and music is a lot more accessible than movies are. And so you can become acquiesced to the artist through his music, and then you already know him, so you're more, Ice Cube's in it. Ice-T's in it. I know Ice-T. I don't know who Derek Luke is, and unfortunately, it's going to be much harder for a trained actor to get a foothold because movies are just not as accessible. When John Singleton, who's one of the most successful directors, may rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Shout out to Kappa Alpha Psi, by the way. He's a Kappa.
Okay.
But when John Singleton put Ice Cube in Boys in the Hood, when Ice-T was put in Colors, that opened the door for a whole new class or a whole new market of acting. Those are the first time that that rap stars were given the silver screen, so to speak. And there have been other, musical, Michael Jackson and The Wiz, Diana Ross and The Wiz, if you remember those. Those were musical
How could you
artists.
forget? If somebody out there doesn't remember those.
And so, you think about it, if The Wiz was remade today, who would play those parts?
No one can replace Michael. I'm sorry. Next.
Or Diana.
That's not happening.
No. And I get it, the level of talent isn't there, the way we consider it to be, but the markability is there. You can't tell me that if Beyonce played Dorothy in The Wiz, it wouldn't be a great, movie that would generate a lot of income.
Yeah.
And as much as I like Beyonce's music, I don't think she's the actress that Diana Ross is.
No, not at all. No, I want to get a couple comments in here.
Sure.
So Anthony says rappers becoming an actor is a sign. Oh, this is interesting. A sign that they know their careers, for the most part, have a shelf life.
Yes, they do.
Which is why they venture into acting as well as investing and starting a business. And that's smart, right? That's very smart. Very smart and very valid. SVU is the best. Yes, I love that show. I love that show. Fun fact, Ice-T's first movie, Breakin'. Was he in Breakin'?
He was in Breakin'. I do remember him in Breakin'.
I remember Ozone.
A very small scene where he was on the stage.
I remember I'm thinking of Crush Groove. I was thinking Sheila E. That was Crush Groove. I miss those movies. To me, those are some of the classics, right? The Breakin'.
They forged our outlook.
Yeah. What's his face? Timac, The Last Dragon, Vanity was in that. So even back then, we saw making that transition to Hollywood, and I think you're spot on. That recognizability.
One other thing too, I like to mention is you have recognizable, but you have accessibility. Do you remember like the golden age of Hollywood? And you have Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and and even your black star, Sidney Poitier, and so forth. Those stars were stars. They were they weren't in our reach, so to speak.
Right.
We didn't have the same experience. I can relate to Ice Cube.
Yeah.
I can relate to Luda. I can relate to him. I can't really and you think about things like people like Denzel Washington, and he's so up in the sky, to a lot of people.
See, I disagree because I feel like Denzel is he's at a point in his career. Yeah, he's made it. He can never work again and wouldn't care because he's set. But I feel like Denzel has that dad, he's kind of like that dad figure now. Like, and even in his younger days, right? He women swooned over him, and not because he's like, super pretty boy or what's classified as like, he's got this likability. He's got this down to earthness about him to me, and this kind of stable, like I said, kind of almost a dad figure, like that guy you can sit with and shoot the breeze with, and he's gonna keep it 100 with you. And I think that's I think there's actors like Denzel, and then like you said, there's actors like the Ice Cubes and the Ice-T's that are more relatable, generationally, right? And that brings me like, I'm wondering now as we're talking, I'm like, who's so we got generation was it millennials, and we've got Gen Z. They're gonna have their folks that they're gonna look back when they're our age and go, oh yeah, that was so and so, and so it's just interesting to me, like each generation has their person, and I think we're in that age group now where our Denzels and folks like that are Ice Cube, because he's got to be like,
he's an elder statesman. We'll call him an elder statesman.
Yeah, 50 Cent, all these people, I've seen them, I watched them kind of mature into, their later beings, if you will. Well, that was fast. We are almost out of time. I told you it was going to go quickly.
So much I wanted to say.
There's so many things to touch on with that. So we'll have to have you back another time to I had a couple other things I wanted to touch on, but we'll have to do it again in the future. All right, I'm K-Cee Diva. Be sure to check me out next Thursday, same time, same place. My guest is, if you watch, did you watch Flavor of Love, Eric? Do you remember that show with Flavor Flav?
Is that New York and hoops and
Yes, yes,
okay?
yes. So there was a young lady on there. Her name was Goldie, and
Yeah, see, it's
she
Flavor
actually,
Flav. You're just like a big bunch of country Alabama fun.
yes, you
Yeah.
got good memory. Anyway, she's gonna be on next week, so
Oh, cool.
we're gonna chit chat and have a good time. I've had her on before, and she's got a new movie coming out, so be sure to tune in next week. And she's got a lot to say about the whole Oscar thing as well. And then we're going to get a sneak peek into this film that she's working on, because it looks like it's a lot of fun. In the meantime, be well, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week. All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Eric, for joining me.
Hope
We'll
to
see
have
you
hope
again
to
soon.
be back on your show.
All right.